Volatile fiddles scratched discordant notes on the walls of her inner temple. Pecks of staccato withered her sense of reality. 1,000 yards away in this dim cavern called the voice of culpability. Tepid gusts of disgrace swept barren throughout her lungs. Darlene looked up from her greyhound for the first time all night. Vodka and grapefruit juice. Separate, they were repulsive and bitter. United, they resembled the sea. Coarse, tolerable, comforting. "You're awake," bemused the barkeep. She gave him no response. None was earned. Any oaf can make an uninspired joke if you can even classify that as one. She wasn't going to dance like a monkey for any haggard man, responding with some electric quip, offering the comedic timing of a sandbag. Darlene, after staring long enough between the gorged eyes of this professional alcoholic, turned her callous gaze towards an empty table by the doorway. She pondered taking her business there, a front row seat out of sight from people too busy to notice you're there. An audible grumble exhaled from the pores of employee and customer. This was not a picturesque Wednesday evening for either. A dead bar, a dead spirit. "Come on then, I'll get you another," spouted the barkeep. "Why would I want another one right now?" retorted the unamused. "What does this overstuffed sausage skin of a man think he's insinuating?" Just trying to be nice. He plopped a fresh greyhound next to what remained of Darlene's current drink. "Drink it if you want, it's on me. You just look like you had a rough day is all." Maybe she should have worn a coat or something. She knew the dangers of going out with her past exposed. The weather's enough of an excuse anyways, but she needed to feel something. "Thanks." She shifted her weight as far away from the counter as possible. Rearing back her lustrous doll face, she made sure to keep eye contact with Mr. Barman. Her saturated virile lips rest on the glass. Grapefruit vodka blend dripped into her eager ravine. A wink and a slurp, showing off what no man would acquire tonight. Who was she kidding? She codependently gawked at the bartender while her thin, chapped lips clenched the edge of the glass, shakily dribbling the drink down her lizard gullet. The sheen of her scarred forearms were ever present under the glaze of the tavern lights. Her portly fingers, which once resembled twigs, tightened around the second glass, then unwound. Princess remembered her drink in the car, her trusty shooter. No need for this one. She stumbled mightily from her perch, dragging her swollen legs towards the exit. Her ears couldn't manage a reaction from the barkeep, but she assumed it was one of desolation, leaving his gift unwrapped. With great exertion, the stout woman plunged into the carmine exit-only door, sending it crashing with her full body weight into the outside wall. An exhalation of sloth. Blearing into the fogged abyss, the reel of memories began to churn. Sepia scenes danced in the fen. A wisp of shadow flickered from the outer limits of her vision. Oh, of course, the car. Let's not get caught up. Time to go. Left leg first, Darlene fell over herself into her vehicle. Now, head resting on the wheel, the coldness of the night tickled her skin. Goosebumps welled as she pulled the door shut. Into her right jean pocket, she found only the wrapper of a long-swallowed piece of gum. Her left pocket yielded menthols and change. The rear compartments hosted not a dime. Where were her keys? She needed the heater more than the car itself. Keys, not on the pattern-felt floor, not behind the passenger seat. Groaning harmoniously with the creaking of her opening car door, Darlene embraced the oppressive breeze of the night once again. Scanning proved no use. She would need to survey the pavement on foot. She lifted her knees only a handful of times before tender shine caught her eye. The ring of keys lay gingerly, illuminated by the red of the neon bar sign. Hastily grasped and plunged, the ignition key twisted into its home. Buttons, 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 and finally, thank God, the heater was on. Enduring the 90 or so seconds of cold air as the ventilation system caught up with human demand was no more difficult than in this moment. A minute and a half lasted an entire shift at the diner. But eventually, her sweltering savior nuzzled her rosy powdered cheeks. Up popped the lid of the center console, and into newly warmed fingers came a dollar store lighter. Darlene pinched the filter off of her menthol cigarette and lit the wrap between stained teeth. It would be irresponsible not to, as she was a bit more than buzzed and had an hour's drive home. She needed a wake-up, an equalizer. So, cigarette in mouth, the responsible driver revved her engine and peeled out of her parking spot. Smoke filled her carriage quicker than anticipated. Upon rolling the window down and ashing out her lollipop, the candy returned to the car unlit and damp. It was raining. A quick glance informed more than just a drizzle. How did she not notice this minutes ago? Hopefully this wasn't the start of a flash flood. Darlene's lighter utilized its encore to rejuvenate her menthol. Damp paper isn't the smoothest tinder, but she was a veteran and she knew her angles. The on and off again relationship between tire and soaked road was the soundtrack to tonight's ride home. That is, until violin entered the fade. Familiar screeches of the stringed instrument were bed bugs in the crib of her mind. Oh no, he was back. The maligned figure stepped out of the shadows once more. Her nemesis, her swan song, her forgotten memory, he was coming again. 1 foot out of the block of her mind, she swerved to close the door, keep him trapped within. She was no longer driving. Darlene had been pulled into the paling light of this ever-expanding room. Shadows pulled away, but no face was found, no limbs extended. The bedfellow slanted back with the corners of shade illuminated by cigarettes' flame. This was no favor, as her legs non-consensually pushed her towards the entity. No, no, she shrieked, letting the light drop out of her mouth. Infinitely, her hand chased this lantern down holes of fabric, only to come up with the reason she felt secure in her station wagon in the first place. Her 3-ounce vodka shooter. To the basement of her throat its contents went, along with any chant of instrument or obscured recollection. Returning to her eyes was the brightness of the road beyond her headlights, the pacifying smell of old smoke, enriched, cooing with the narrow relief of escape. The survivor's enveloped senses thawed in earthly comforts. Her heater, too, bigger and bolder than ever. No ill man would stop their ascent. To Darlene's horror, a growing fire resided on the carpet below her passenger seat. At the base, her menthol. With half an eye on the road and 1.5 on automotive insides, she dug for any dampener of use. Nothing she kept in her vehicle was anything but flammable. Her reach of faith landed her right palm on the handle of the far door. Her hesitation marks, now on their greatest display, reflected her inferno. Between slowing the car to a stop on the shoulder of the wooded expressway and opening the door to let Mother Nature's tears in, Darlene failed to consider the repercussions of a quick stop on sodden thoroughfare. A well-intentioned mistake, a distracted mind, the aftermath of an event no fault of her own, took this life before cement and alloy could. The remains, at least, of Darlene were freed from the voices of trauma. No longer would her well-being suffer from prior events encumbering sober thought. Cerebral torture undone by a collision. The burden, since 16, could no longer plague her and those around her. Coping mechanisms of those not endowed by upper-class allowances had only strengthened the bond of victimhood to body. Tonight, she escaped.